Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Refinishing Furniture. If you're new here, hi, my name is Monica and I refinish furniture. On today's video, I'm going to be working on this beautiful buffet credenza that I got on Marketplace for free. I love getting things for free because it makes my profit margin a lot better. Now, as you can see, it does have some wear and tear on the top, but nothing I cannot fix. And at the end of the video, you will see the amazing results. As always, a friendly reminder, my channel does thrive on comments, likes, and sharing the video with others, so I kindly ask that you show my channel some love. With that being said, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is remove the hardware. Now, I feel like I need to get one of those like small battery operated screwdrivers that are just like palm drivers. I don't know what they're called, but they are a lot smaller than the one I'm using here. This one is just, it does its job. It's great for other things, but it's just too big when I'm trying to remove the hardware from the drawers, and I'm having to take out the drawer, put it on top of the piece, and then I'm just afraid that I'm gonna scratch the top. But anyway, just a little reminder too, when you are removing your hardware, go ahead and connect your screw to your pull again, because God knows if you're trying to put this piece together to either post it on Facebook Marketplace, or for me in my case, bring it over to the shop, I will not find the proper screw to it, and it just drives me insane. So I have just started making sure to put it back together so that I don't have to deal with that later on. I typically don't like to remove the drawers or the doors off of my pieces, but you will never catch me painting the hinges. I hate it. I personally think it looks very tacky, and I don't like my pieces with the hinges painted, and these hinges show a lot. I also want to make sure that they match my hardware, and so if I paint them or if I paint over them, it's going to be really hard to touch them up by hand. So I would just much rather remove them and tape off the area and just go ahead and spray paint them along with the hardware. So one of the reasons why people really hate removing their doors is because whenever they go to put it back together, the hinges, if you don't label it, the hinges will not go on the right part of the door. And so when you go to close the door, it'll either get stuck or it won't close smoothly. So I have developed my own method of labeling things, and I'm pretty sure that there are other labeling methods out there that people use, probably a lot more simpler than mine. But I've just made a set of rules for myself in which I will label the door left or right, top or bottom, right? And I will always make sure that my arrow is pointing upward. That is a very basic rule. This way, I always know that if the arrow is pointing up, that means that is the top part of the door. Now, very simple here. I'm just using some blue painter's tape, and I am just labeling whether the door is the left door or the right door, or if it's the left middle or right middle. Super simple. I found it to have great results when I'm putting my piece back together. I will say you might have to mess around with the screws when you're putting the hinge on the door and when you're tightening it up, because you might still get a little struggle with the door. But honestly, this is probably the best method to fix that problem. So next, I'm going to prep the surface for sanding. Feel free to use any kind of degreasing product, but you guys know me, and I like to use crud cutter to clean up any grease and dust accumulated on the surface. This product doesn't require any rinsing, but I do like to have a bucket of water to rinse my rag a few times. Since I already had my doors out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and clean the inside and make sure that it's nice and clean for when I'm ready to put my doors back on. For this makeover, I will be sanding the top to bare wood, and it will be a painted/stained combo. The top of the dresser is not solid wood. It does have a very thin veneer, which can be easily destroyed by a too high grit sandpaper like 180 or 120. So I actually used a 180 grit sandpaper to get down to bare wood. I do want to mention that typically I can start with 120 grit sandpaper, but I looked in the back of the server to see how thick the veneer looked, and I was a little scared that I wouldn't be able to pull this off without messing up the veneer. Luckily for me, the finish on this dresser was almost gone, so it took me approximately 15 minutes to sand the entire top. But if you're just starting to refinish furniture or you have never worked on a wooden top before, just assume it's veneer and assume it's very, very thin. Avoid using super high grit sandpaper like 80. I would definitely start with 120, and as you get more familiar with veneer and how thick they are and how to recognize the thickness of it by looking at the piece from the back, you'll definitely get better at discerning which kind of sandpaper, which kind of grit you should use for that specific piece. With the same sanding disc, I went over the rest of the body to give it a good scuff sand. The drawers I did by hand, given that there's only 3 of them, and the middle one had a curved profile, and I definitely don't want to mess up the shape. Now, once I was done sanding, I went ahead and vacuumed all the dust off and began prepping some Bondo to patch up the base. So let's talk about wood filler. This one right here is by the brand Bondo. It's a 2-part filler, and just in general, I really like using this product for most of my projects because it dries super fast and super hard. Bondo is best for areas that might get more wear and tear, and that's why you typically see me using Bondo on legs and bases, or if I'm covering up extensive damage. For smaller dinks and scratches, you can use glazing Bondo or DAP wood filler, and I really like the one that changes from pink to white when it's dry. It has like a really cool indicator, so you can go ahead and sand. While I let the Bondo dry, I'm going to start paint washing the top. I am using Fusion's Algonquin to tone down any redness in the wood. I do like to use 1 part paint to 3 parts water, give or take, and honestly, it's kind of hard to mess the ratios up. Just make sure to mix it all the way so you don't pick up any chunks of paint with your brush or your foam applicator. If you've ever wondered why everyone uses this color for toning down red or orange colors, it's because it has a green undertone which cancels those 2 colors. I let the wash sit for a few minutes before wiping back with the blue shop paper towel, and then I took a dry brush over the surface to soften up any marks left by the paper towel. This is the most dreaded part of the process for me, but it is so important to cover up the doors to make sure that I don't get any overspray inside the piece. And I don't know why, you guys, but I literally have nightmares about customers complaining about the quality of my work, and just thinking about one of them like calling me back or wanting a refund just gives me so much anxiety. So I try my hardest to protect anything that's not supposed to be painted from that overspray. For this next part, I decided to use Decorative Glaze by Rust-Oleum. This is in the color Java, and it does extremely well on paint wash surfaces. If you guys decide to do this look, I am telling you it will sell extremely fast. As of this video, this has already sold, and it is at my client's home. I listed this on a Monday, which is already not the best day to post a listing because people are not necessarily on their phones at the beginning of the week. But I have been selling on Marketplace long enough that the algorithm will still push my listings. Also, one of the best ways for me to sell furniture in this area has been to rent a booth at a vintage market and to advertise on Marketplace. And again, it's primarily because of my location. I live in Southern Maryland and it is not super accessible for people to shop out of my like garage. So this is what I've had to do while living in this part of Maryland. Here is a screenshot of the actual listing, and as you can see, it got pretty good numbers on Marketplace. I actually got a deposit for it by Wednesday, and my client picked it up on Sunday. So I will definitely be replicating this look a few more times because this was a really good money maker, especially because I got the dresser for free. So originally I wanted to paint this in a lighter color and I knew it was going to be a bleeder. So I used white shellac primer, but by the cover of this video, I'm assuming that you can already tell I ended up using a completely different color. So my suggestion is to use gray primer instead if you're planning to replicate this look. This stuff has really low viscosity, so it flies everywhere, which is why you need a respirator. You really don't want this stuff in your lungs. And I also highly suggest you buy a tent to keep the overspray contained. It's finally painting time. I decided to go with black for this piece, which if you look at my work portfolio, you will notice I don't have a ton of black pieces, mainly because I can never find a true black paint, but Fusion Mineral Paint does have a true black in their line, and that is exactly what I decided to use for this transformation. Again, going in with my pneumatic sprayer to achieve that super smooth finish. It is honestly such a good skill to learn for refinishing furniture. I understand that it can be a little intimidating for some people, but once you learn how to use one, it's such a game changer, not just for the amount of time that you're going to save refinishing your furniture, but the final product is so much superior than painting it by hand with a brush. Before spraying the second coat, I went over the entire piece with a fine grit sanding pad to remove any texture or debris that may have gotten stuck to it while drying. I do this step after every coat of paint, but once I get to the top coat, I use a super fine sanding pad, and again, I sand after every coat dries. And not to be super confusing here, but I just want to reiterate, I use a fine sanding pad after every coat of paint, and I use a super fine grit sanding pad after every top coat. In order to avoid a white haze when applying the top coat, I poured a little black paint and mixed it well with the poly. I had to pull the plastic off because the white primer and the paint that had gotten on it was peeling and it was flying all over the wet poly. I ended up doing 2 full coats of poly, and once it dried, I began putting the doors back on. Now, I know a lot of you like to know how much money I make refinishing furniture. And if you've made it this far into the video, I would love to share with you that I made about $500 with this one, which is amazing given the fact that I got this server for free. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate your time, and I really hope this makeover has inspired you to recreate this look, or at the very least, it has encouraged you to take on your own furniture flip or really any DIY. Again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget like, subscribe, and share this video with others. And I will see you guys next time for another furniture flip. Bye-bye.